So first of all, we'll discuss about improving animal welfare. Yesterday, we have discussed completely about animal welfare and its different aspects. So today, animal welfare is possible through social conditions. That is the point of discussion in this class. The first part we'll discuss here is social environment and animal welfare, how they are interrelated, how they are interrelated to each other. That is the first part. So here, what is social environment? All we know that social environment refers to the interaction between organisms, or we call it as social organisms. What organisms? They form the society. They are social organisms. So social organisms, how they interact with each other. Okay, that means their interaction with same species, which we call it as conspecific interactions, interaction with other species, and sometimes human welfare means yesterday I have discussed that here we are discussing about animal welfare means particularly non-human animal welfare. Okay, so those non-human animals, they have also certain interactions with the human being. So this is basically the social environment and the social structure and relationship an animal has can have a significant influence on their overall welfare. Okay, if animal social structure and relationship is good, then welfare is possible. We can say that welfare is possible. So social dynamics affect physical health. If there is change, if there is frequent change in social structure that affects the physical health, emotional well-being, and cognitive function, the learning ability, which are critical to assess welfare. So there must be a stable social condition to maintain animal welfare. That is the concluding remark of this introductory part. Okay, if inappropriate social environments are there, then that leads to different stress, fear, aggression, isolation, which has an immediate negative effect or impact on animal welfare. So in pictures, I have just marked different categories of animals. Categories of animals, they first interdependent with their same categories, then they interdependent with other, some or certain categories of animals. Okay, so these are the
Sir, your voice is breaking.
relationship between social environment and animal welfare. So social environment and animal welfare. If we discuss about the group size means how many organisms are present in the group that determines the group.
Sir, your voice is
Your
breaking.
voice is breaking.
Now audible.
Yes, sir.
Shall I start?
Yes, sir.
ମୋ voice ଶୁଭୁଛି ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ?
Again, sir.
Okay. So I'm continuing. If organisms. How many food sources are there? Okay, and what is the impact? The group size affect which characteristics? That affect aggression level, that affect stress level, that affect ability to express natural behavior. Why? Because if overcrowding is there, the first picture expresses the overcrowding of organisms. If there is overcrowding in animal group, that leads to increased competition. That means yesterday I have given one example of human population growth and resources. Same thing also applied here. For the penguin population, if population in that area become very or growing in a faster rate, that means those population, they develop competition and aggression. Why? Because resources are limited. Resources are not growing in accordance to their population. That's why they fight with each other. They compete with each other for getting appropriate resources. Okay, because there is resource depletion. And if underpopulation is there or isolation, the second picture shows this characteristic of isolation, means underpopulation. It means organism is very alone in its area, which leads to loneliness, boredom, and abnormal behavior, stereotypic behavior, because there is no paths for enjoyment, there is no paths for any kind of other activities that can be performed in combination or with other organisms. They feel very lonely. They cannot express themselves properly due to their loneliness. So overcrowding and underpopulation or isolation of this group size both affect the organismal behavior as well as organismal welfare. So this is the first category. Second category is the hierarchy and dominance. Hierarchical system means stepwise system, different organisms in different groups. Some organism from them are dominant, some organism they dominate on other organisms. Okay, so this hierarchical system may face challenges due to dominance related conflict. Here, just mark this picture, the third one. Some organism in this hierarchy, they show dominance due to their size, due to their power, due to different other activities. They shows dominancy over other certain small groups of organism. Okay, that also this hierarchical system maintains what? It maintains the food chain and ecological balance. But when it maintains the food chain and ecological balance, when the hierarchy is stable. But if instability found in hierarchy, that deplete the ecological balance, that harm the animal welfare in both farm condition as well as in natural condition which are present in the forest. Okay, so hierarchy and dominance is another aspect of this social environment in animal welfare. And the lastly, the important factor is compatibility. That means group composition in terms of age, sex, temperament, and familiarity influences social harmony and welfare. That means each age group organism has their own importance. If reproductive age group is there, old age group is there, young mass is there. So this different kind of age group population, different sex ratio, how many males are there, how many females are there, they also affect what? They also affect the animal welfare because they are also important aspects. And opportunities for bonding is very important. That's why it is mentioned in the last part that some species from strong social bond like primate, elephant, all these kind of species and depriving animals of social interaction can have severe welfare consequences. Okay, so how organism make bond with other organism? Some organism, they prefer to make good bonds. They prefer to bond to the formation of bond with other organisms. So this is important aspects. Group size, hierarchical system, compatibility, and opportunities for bonding are important aspect for what? Social environment in animal welfare. Now come to impact of social environment on welfare. What are the impacts? Mainly, I have cited here three important major impacts. So other impacts also you can cite if you get from any source. These are the three important impacts, whatever I have cited here. First important impact is behavioral impact. That means suitable social environment encourages the expression of natural behavior such as grooming, playing, mating, and nurturing. Okay, so if environment is suitable, then all the kind of behavioral aspect is good. Okay, but if environment is not suitable, lack of social environment can result in abnormal or disruptive behaviors. That means if environment is not good, organism cannot perform normal behavior, that perform different kind of irregularities in its normal behavior. Okay, if we'll discuss about the psychological behavior, the positive social interactions, if our social organisms are there and positive social interactions are there, they promote what? Emotional well-being, emotional state of organism. While negative social environment increases stress and anxiety in the organism, that also affect different physiological aspects of our body. So what is that physiological impact? Physiological impact means if organism is under stress for a longer period of time, that leads to altered hormone levels. We know that hormonal coordination and neural coordination are two important coordination of our body. If they are not maintained properly, then body condition is not or will not be good. We can say that. So if organism is not facing a good environmental status, if organism is under stress for a longer period of time, that means many physiological conditions of the body along with the immunological conditions are getting affected due to all these factors. So this is the environment of social, this is the impact of social environment on welfare. If environment is good, then behavioral impacts are good, psychological impacts are good, along with physiological impact. So this is the condition. Now come to socially induced welfare problems. So mainly which kind of problems we can find if social condition is not good. So first problem we can find here is aggression and social conflict. If we'll take some examples of what? Examples of territorial species. That means certain species, they love to stay, they love to live in their territory. They do not enter into other territories due to many factors, due to factor of protection, due to factor of nutrition, due to factor of their reproduction, sexual behavior, everything. So they need their territory. They love to live inside their territory. If those territorial species, they become aggressive when space is limited. It means if due to any factor, if due to human encouragement, if due to any other invasive species presence, they feel the space is limited for them. That means they become very aggressive. They come into the condition of stress. And another important factor is here is the dominance hierarchies. Dominance hierarchies leads to what? It leads to social bullying, where lower ranking individuals are deprived of food, shelter, and mates. That means that is an imbalance. Bullying means imbalance, social bullying. Some organisms that dominates over other organisms. That means they can get their proper food. But which organism coming under the weaker section, they unable to get their proper food, shelter, mate, anything. Okay, so that is another important factor regarding your social conflict as well as aggression. That is one problem. Second problem we can mark here is the isolation stress. What is that isolation stress? That means solitary confinement. Solitary state means two states generally we can find in organismal group. One is colonial state, another is solitary state. Solitary state means the free living organism, the organism which is isolated, that is coming under the solitary state. So solitary state confinement or isolation from conspecifics is highly stressful for social species. When one species or any individual from those species are separated from the group, from the herd, it is very difficult for that species to live because loneliness increases time after time when it is not present in its herd, in its group. So here, species specific needs should be considered. If we are talking about cows, pigs, parrots, thrive in social groups, whereas some animals like certain reptiles are solitary by nature. Okay, some organisms they prefer solitary life, but in some organism, solitary life is not good for those organisms. So isolation stress for many organisms are also a big problem for their welfare. Next is the reproductive issue. Reproductive issue means any kind of problem, any kind of disruption in normal social interaction, such as isolation can lead to reproductive issues. Due to any factor, if male and female mating is not possible, due to reproductive isolation, due to geographical isolation, due to any factor, if mating is not possible, then species is under stress due to many factors. So many species rely on social cues for successful mating and parental care. At last, we have to discuss about the maternal deprivation. What it emphasizes: inadequate social conditions during early development. That means maternal separation can lead to long-term behavioral and emotional problem. If mother is in stress for a longer time due to separation from the group, due to protection issue, then the mother unable to take proper care of the offspring, that leads to different behavioral problem, emotional problem in later stage. So these are different problems associated with social organisms. So how to improve? If different problems are there, certain parameters are there, organisms should follow certain parameters or certain protocols are there to improve the animal welfare status through social conditions. Mainly, those are marked in this point: enhancing group living condition, preventing social isolation, encouraging positive social interactions, monitoring and addressing aggression. So one by one, we'll discuss about it. So first, enhancing the group living condition. We have already discussed how the group is affected, the or the how the group affects animal welfare. If group is not properly distributed, then what is the improvement strategy? Ensure appropriate group size. If we are talking about certain organisms in farm, in zoos, or in other industry, then we have to be very ensure about their group size and composition that allow individual to establish social bonds. It means uh, we must follow the protocols that do not allow overpopulation as well as underpopulation. That means the proper group size is maintained throughout the period. Then provide opportunities for animal to develop stable social hierarchies. That means dominant organism, non-dominant organism, they maintain their stability. Food is there for all, but stability, stable hierarchy can maintain the animal welfare. If hierarchy is not stable, then animal welfare maintenance is also not possible. Then preventing social isolation. Social isolation is another important factor for their aggression as well as for their loneliness. So, for social species, provide opportunities for social interaction with con-species. That means if organism is living lonely, then we should keep another organism of same species group of different sex in that area of living or in that area. Okay. Otherwise, it will feel severe loneliness, stress, and aggression. Another way for this prevention of isolation is that artificial social enrichment. That means mirror-like substances we should keep in their area of living. That means the organism should feel that another organism is looking to him or her, looking to that organism. That is the artificial social enrichment and interaction with human. Human interaction also another important aspect of this prevention method. The third part, encouraging positive social interactions. That means we have to facilitate cooperative behavior. Okay, that means certain organism they love to play. We should provide that kind of environment for that organism by using those environmental subject or objectives. They can get certain positive social interactions. Okay, and ensure that resources such as food, space, enrichment of environment item is available in sufficient quantities. That means they should not feel that they are in hunger. They should feel that like nature, they have sufficient amount of food. And monitoring is very important. The last part is monitoring and addressing aggression, which is very important because regular observation to animals for sign of aggression or social stress. If regularly we observe the organism, then we can understand organism is facing any kind of problem like aggression and social stress. If aggression occurs, then consider environmental modification. In our case also, if every day we are getting angry, if aggressions are there, then the first prescription from doctor or from any other personnel, from any educated person that change your place, that can shift some amount of tension, some amount of any kind of hypertension from your point of view or your thinking. Okay, so this can adapt for the improvement of animal welfare through social conditions. Now, what are the strategies for solving socially induced welfare problem? The strategies, some pictorial presentations are there that environmental enrichment is very important for behavioral management. If organism is feeling free, we have discussed about the 5 freedoms. Apart from the freedom, we have to incorporate some other strategies to improve their welfare condition. So these strategies includes what? Training and conditioning. Different programs we should follow, or the companies, different industries should follow different programs like playing games with the organism, different training pattern that reduce the stress, that encourage the positive interactions, that trigger the positive interaction in organism. In joyful mood, they can achieve their reproductive success. They can increase their number by proper reproduction. Okay, so this is behavioral management. We can modify the behavioral management by doing certain things. And after that, veterinary and physiological interventions also very important. That means treatment to organism. If organism is affected by any kind of diseases, treatment is very important. Without treatment, organismal survivability is difficult. If survivability is difficult, then welfare cannot be discussed. Okay. And rehoming strategies, that means if organism is feeling isolated in any medium or any place, then rehoming or transforming that organism to other group is very important. Otherwise, it will cause a lot of stress to the organism. So these are different strategies for solving social induced welfare problems. And also, the strategies add other two things, that is improved housing design and socialization program. That means improve housing design. Just look at the pictures. But if we keep the organism in a closed or enclosed places, then we should improve the housing design. And we should place multiple sources to assess points to minimize the conflict. If a single source is there and every organism is attacking that source for their food, then that leads to conflict, that leads to fighting between the organism, that leads to death, maybe the death of the organism. So to reduce that, improve housing design, like escape routes, different escape routes are there, visual barriers are there, multiple resources access points must be there. So these are different factors of improved housing design. Okay, and we should provide species specific environment that mimic natural social structure. When we are talking about the zoo in Nandankanan, also we can see that as much as we can, as much as possible, we can provide them their natural environment. They should not feel that they are in enclosure. They should feel that they are in their natural environment. Okay, so that is another important factor. And lastly, the socialization program, which introduce young animals to social group at an appropriate age to promote healthy social development. Okay, for animals in captivity, implement gradual introduction of new individuals or group to minimize the stress and aggression. If organism is facing any kind of aggression due to loneliness, due to any environmental status, then we should introduce some new organism to that group in a regular interval, not in plenty, in a regular interval in small amounts. That also reduce some amount of stress and aggression. Okay, so these are different strategies for solving social induced welfare problem. Now, these are certain case studies we should discuss. You can mention another case studies. So, for farm animals, providing adequate space and group composition in pigs, chicken, cows have been shown to reduce aggression. If they are in group, they generally they do not become aggressive organism. Okay, and that condition improve their reproductive success and promote social bonding. In case of zoo animal, social enrichment in primate, including larger and more complex enclosure, and the introduction of conspecifics has improved welfare indicators such as reduced stereotypic behaviors and enhanced social grooming. That means if we are talking about the zoos, different for different organism, different complexes or enclosures are there. For tiger, different enclosures. For lion, different enclosures. We cannot place tiger and lion in the same enclosure. We cannot place tiger and deer in the same enclosure. Different enclosures are there. So for that, we have to improve the welfare indicators. That means we have to introduce more and more number of corn species. That means same species. They can feel that their number is increasing. They should feel free. They should feel fearless in that environment. That leads to their reproductive success, that leads to their behavioral success. Okay, and that enhance social grooming of those organisms. And lastly, the companion animals, which ensure, like dogs and cats, have positive interactions with other pet and human, can reduce anxiety, promote play, and improve emotional well-being. All we can face in our daily life. When we are talking about dogs in our or pets in our home, that help in reducing different anxieties. When many pets are present in a same environmental condition, they that type of meeting also reduce their anxiety, and they play with each other without any hesitation, without any protection issue, which improve their emotional well-being. So these are the different case studies in different group. Okay, so these are different strategies for improvement of animal welfare by community structure. I think all of you clear about this. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now I'll go for the next slide. So next part, we'll discuss about human contact on animal behavior. So basically, we'll discuss about here what are the points we should discuss. What is the relationship between human and animal? How animal welfare is possible due to human activities? What are the conflicts between human and animal? What steps should be taken to mitigate that conflict? So these are important aspects of this chapter we should discuss here. First of all, we'll discuss about human animal interactions. So what is that interaction? That can have profound effects on animal welfare, particularly in domesticated, farm, captive, and companion animals. Okay, that means human is associated with this group of animals. Okay, domesticated animals, farm animal, captive animals, like animals present in the enclosure, and companion animals, cats and dogs. So these are different animals to which human is associated. So human activity is essential or influence a lot to the animal welfare. So what is the impact of animal welfare? The quality of human contact, positive contact, neutral or negative contact, influence animals' psychological, emotional, and physical well-being. Animal can express positive welfare outcomes from beneficial human interactions, including reduced stress, improved health, and better socialization. Whereas negative interaction, just look at these two pictures at right side. In first picture, there is a good bonding between human and animal. That means that is the positive interaction between human and animal. Animal is feel free near to the human. Okay, but in the second picture, here this is the negative interaction. That means both both human and animal, they are under stress for their conflict. That effect is the negative effect. Okay, so these are different influence of human contact on animal welfare. Now come to positive contact. We all know that positive contact is very good contact, that animal welfare is possible. But it is very essential to discuss about the negative contact and neglect. We'll go for the positive contact in later, but first of all, we'll discuss about the negative contact and neglect, how this negative contact and neglect affect the animal welfare. If we'll discuss about negative contact, that means what kind of contact are coming under negative contact? Harsh handling, abusive treatment, or force resistance can lead to chronic stress and fear response in animal. If the trainer is not handling the organism or not caring the organism in proper way, in humanitarian way, that leads to negative contact. And the negative interaction with human, such as shouting, hitting, or rough handling, can cause animal to develop learn fear responses. Learn fear responses means every day the animal is getting afraid of the trainer, of the human being surrounding them, which may manifest as avoidance, aggression, or submissiveness. That means due to fearness, this characteristic can be increased. Okay. What is the stress related health problems? They may rise due to constant exposure to negative contact, including compromised immune system, digestive issue, and reproductive issue. This is not the case of animals. This is the case of human being also, both non-human animals as well as human being. If stress is there, that means that related to different health issues like immune system, degrade immune system, digestive low or poor digestive power, reproductive failures are there, organism unable to attain the reproductive success. So these are different conditions. And then at last, what is neglect? Neglect is the lack of attention. If the trainer is not taking care, or the persons involved with the animals, if not taking care properly, that leads to the neglect. So what are the neglect condition? Failure to provide proper nutrition, hygiene, or mental stimulation that can lead to physical deterioration and emotional stress are called as neglecting behavior of human being. Just look at the picture of this dog which is present, the second picture, that leads to the negligence of the owner. The dog is present where that leads to the negligence of owner. That means food is not proper or nutrition is not proper, the condition is not hygienic. Mentally, the dog is in its ill state, which leads to its physical degradation. And the second aspect of this is prolonged neglect can cause animal to develop behavioral abnormalities. If organism is facing this kind of problem regularly, that develops anxiety, which leads to different reproductive failure and other physical issues, whatever we have discussed in previous part. Okay, so social deprivation is the ultimate result of this kind of negligence. So this is all about the negative contact and their effects. Now come to the positive contact. What is the effect of positive contact? Human animal interaction, positive contact express what? It express gentle handling, appropriate socialization, and positive reinforcement. What do you mean by reinforcement? Already we have discussed the reinforcement is the award which can develop trust between human and animal. If we are engaging the animals in certain work, in certain activities, and after that we are providing awards, reinforcement to those organisms in the form of different food, in form of just hugging the organisms, that become that enhance the trigger, the trust of those organisms with or towards the human being. Okay, so this positive human animal interaction includes what? Includes mainly three things. One is regular positive interaction, bonding with human, and positive reinforcement training. So regular positive interactions is, we can explain one example, that is feeding. If we have certain cows in our home, regular feeding develop a proper bonding, a very lovely interaction between human being and the pet. So it promotes the psychological health of the organism. It promotes the natural behavior. It encourages the natural behavior of organism that start trusting on those human beings. Okay. Bonding with human, it may lead to improved physical health as animals are more likely to seek care and treatment when necessary. Positive reinforcement, already I have told you, after training, if we give some food, if we give some reward to those organisms, that reduce stress during handling or medical procedures. So some examples are cited here. Generally in farming, gentle handling has been shown to improve livestock and its productivity. Better growth rate and reproductive success can be achieved from this pattern. Now, the opportunities to improve human-animal relationship. What are the opportunities? Improved handling techniques. That means whoever may be the trainer, whoever may be the persons associated or human being associated with animals, non-human animals, educating the handlers are very important. Without education, awareness is not possible. So education is very important for organismal care or take care. Human handling practices can minimize negative interactions and enhance welfare. If human become aware about their status, about their awareness, about their conditions or the conditions of organism, then generally human do not harm to the organism. Human start behaving in human manner or practice for their betterment. So incorporation of positive reinforcement training technique rather than using punishment can foster stronger human animal bonding. At the time of training, instead of punishment, we should give them certain rewards after their function. Okay, so that trigger the functional ability of the organism. Secondly, the social opportunities include what? Early and frequent exposure to human, particularly in young or newly acquired animal, can promote positive socialization and reduce fear or aggression towards human. That means if human is associated with the organism from its very early level after birth, then it would be very difficult, it would be very easier for that organism, for that animal to make a good bond with the human being. That leads to less anxiety and fearness to the human being from the animal side. And consistency and routine, that includes establishment, predictable, consistent interaction, which help animals feel more secure in human presence, reducing stress. Okay, consisting interaction means interaction regarding any factor, any aspect. If interactions are there, that reduce the stress of those organisms. And providing regular opportunities for positive interaction can reinforce trust between animals and other non-human organisms. Already we have discussed about this. So now come to the methods for improving human-animal relationship. So what are the basic methods? It includes positive reinforcement training. Already we have discussed the picture. First picture shows that after training, the person is giving some food to the organism as the positive interaction or as in the form of reinforcement reward. Okay. So not only the food, praise, play with the organism, encourage animal to associated human interaction, all these are coming under the positive reinforcement training. And this positive reinforcement training also include avoidance of punishment. Punishment based training is not good for organismal welfare, animal welfare. So try to avoid as much as we can the punishment based training. It can damage trust and result in fear or aggression. The second important part is environmental enrichment. Environmental enrichment means enriching environment with activities that mimic natural behavior. It means they should feel that this is our natural environment. Whatever organism, whatever human beings are present surrounding us, they are also natural organism and we can trust them. That is very important. How? We should make environment to those organisms like that. Human with animal playing with certain toys, structured play sessions. So these are very important aspects. Lastly, human behavior modification is also important. Training human and animal behavior and communication can help the animals interpret animal signals and respond opportunities, fostering better relationship. Okay, human day by day, time by time, it should change its behavioral status to the organism. Okay, the body language of those organisms can be well understood and they shows the different conditions of the organism. The human should know those kind of behavior showing by the organism. So these are different methods. Now, animal signals in human animal interaction. So what kind of signals? I have told you before some time in last slide that they are showing signals and those signals must be well understood by the human being because those signals are actually the indicators of their condition, present status. So generally, animals communicate through a range of body language, vocalization, and behavior that signals their emotional state. So what are the signs for fear? Mainly, either organism in fear or stress or organism is in relaxation. So mainly, what are the signs? What are the signals for the stress condition? Tail tuckling in dogs, vocalization like growling or hissing, avoidance behaviors. So different animals are showing different kind of stress related behavior. When they are in a relaxed mood, they are also showing certain soft vocalization, relaxed posture. So these are different type of signs. Here, pictorial presentation explain different types of signs, dog behavior signals. Okay, different behavior signal in different conditions of the dog. Okay, so the last part of this chapter is not the yes, this is the last part of this chapter is very important alarming factor, which is human animal conflict, SWC, commonly abbreviated as HWC. What HWC explains, human animal conflict explains, when human and animals negatively interact, which can have negative consequences for both human and wildlife. Okay, so Positive interaction do not lead to or never lead to human animal conflict. Conflict means both are in opposite direction. No one is in favor of other. No one support other in different behavioral or different aspects. So when human animal conflict, this can occur when wildlife needs or behavior impact human, or when human negatively impact wildlife. These are the factors. Either this starts from the wildlife or this starts from the human point of view. Nowadays, mostly this conflict is due to different anthropogenic activities or man-made activities. So, what are the examples of human wildlife in conflict include? It includes, these are the points: crop damage, livestock predation, injury or death to humans, damage to infrastructure, increased risk of disease transmission, habitat disturbance, loss of property, loss of livelihood. Every day we are getting this kind of news. So these are the examples of human wildlife conflict. Human wildlife conflicts. What are the causes of human wildlife conflicts? It's a global reach and impact the long-term survival of iconic species like elephant, tigers. Generally, wildlife conflict is with this kind of animal. Not only this kind of animal, so other animals are also have confliction with human being. Or human wildlife conflict are there. But generally, mostly we find this kind of animals in conflict with human being. So it can also impact sustainable development activities and global supply chain of agricultural goods. Human wildlife conflict is one of the important cause for sustainable development. It impacts the sustainable development. Loss of biodiversity, human wildlife conflict result loss of biodiversity. Okay, so loss of biodiversity actually impact sustainable development. So what are the causes for this SWC? First cause is human population growth. Nowadays, it is not growth, it is bombardment, human population bombardment. As the world's population grows, humans require more land to live and farm, which can lead to habitat loss for animals. When they do not get their proper habitat, they try to encroach into the human populated area, and that leads to the conflict. So this is major fact of human wildlife conflict. Secondly, the climate change. This is in recent time we can witness, everybody can witness that human activities, different human activities leads to climate change. Climate change means eradication of certain organism, eradication of certain animals, plants. So these also affect the wild animals group, which leads to different type of human animal conflict. Agricultural expansion, in the first point also we have mentioned, agricultural expansion leads to loss of their habitat, which leads to conflict. Overgrazing by livestock, when forest or herbivorous organism or wild organisms are there, and overgrazing due to different livestock, that leads to loss of food to the wildlife, and that leads to conflicts and competition between these two groups. Okay, deforestation is also associated with this factor. Illegal grass collection also affect the factors of nutrition, and at last poaching, illegal hunting. So every day there is news of this illegal hunting, which leads to human animal conflict, because animal try to protect them, and for that purpose they try to attack on human. That leads to the conflict between human and animal. So these are the pictorial presentations of different causes, certain causes of human animal confliction. If conflictions are there, then we should follow certain strategies to mitigate the conflicts. So these are the mitigation strategies, which include three important things. First thing is reducing stressors in captive environment by mimicking natural habitat. Stressor means the organisms or the animals which are in stress due to loss of habitat, due to loss of nutrients. So first thing, we should provide those kind of environment that mimics their natural habitat. That means they should feel free in that habitat. That is the first important thing. Educating communities about human practice for interacting with wild or domesticated animal. Nowadays, we can see many organizations, they try to educate, they try to create awareness among the people, among the communities who are in direct conflict with animals. Okay, and how they treat the animal at the time of conflict. That is very important. Awareness is very important. Education is very important at that point. Last thing is implementing conflict resolution programs, such as wildlife corridors and protected areas to reduce human wildlife conflict. When human is not encroaching into their habitat, that reduce the human wildlife conflict. Why daily human wildlife conflict are there? Because human try to encroach into their habitat. That leads to increase human wildlife conflict. So we should reduce human wildlife conflict by reducing the encroachment. That's why wildlife corridor protected areas are very important, or they are playing a very important role, like the declaration of sanctuary, national park. So these are the protected areas in which organism they feel free to move, they feel free to breed everything. So these are the strategies to resolve human animal conflict. Conservation effect. Conservation effect means particularly habitat conservation. If habitat is good, then organism feel free. So for that purpose, different protected areas, wildlife corridors, non-lethal methods to manage conflict are very important. Non-lethal methods to manage conflict between human and animal. That means without harming to those organisms, we can protect those organisms in which they can feel free. Education and outreach are very important. Already in the last slide we have discussed. And human solutions, it is to manage conflict between farm animals and humans. That means if organisms are kept in farm, that doesn't mean that organism is treating ruthless. Proper rest should be provided to them. Avoidance of harsh confinement. That means proper space, proper food should be provided to them for their betterment, for their welfare. Okay. For wildlife, advocating of ethical coexistence measures such as installing deterrent to reduce livestock. That means we should follow different method, different ethical aspects by which we can reduce the damage of our wild flora, wild fauna. That is very important. In conclusion, just have marked these 3 points that human contact plays a critical role in the welfare of animals with both positive and negative impact depending on quality and nature of interactions. Improving human-animal relationship through education, positive handling, and better communication can enhance animal welfare, promote trust, and reduce conflict. A deep understanding of animal signals, careful management of human-animal interactions, and the development of human conflict mitigation strategies are essential for promoting sustainable welfare-oriented human-animal relationship. So this all about the chapters we have discussed. Now we'll go for next slide. The slide contains breeding. Animal breeding. So is it audible to all?
Yes, sir.
All the slides are visible.
Yes, sir.
So first of all, we'll discuss about animal breeding. What is that animal breeding? It refers to selection and propagation of desirable trait. Desirable trait means the trait in animal can provide the desirable characteristic. If we are thinking about cow, what is the desirable trait? If we are thinking about the breeding, the desirable trait is milk breed. That means the breed which can produce more amount of milk. That is the desirable trait. So that trait must be collected to enhance the productivity, the health, and specific behavioral characteristic. That is the main aim of animal breeding. Selective breeding has historically been used to improve agricultural yields, increase growth rate, and enhance physical trait in both farm and companion animals. So, what is the power of selective breeding? The power of selective breeding lies in its ability to modify genetic makeup. Okay, the power is lie to modify the genetic makeup. Genetic makeup means whatever gene constituencies are present, what organism is containing the genes, we should modify those genes by incorporating or associating other organisms gene, which is called as desirable gene. That is the genetic makeup modification across generations. Okay, that means if two organisms are there and they produce a same kind of organism, that means there is no genetic makeup because there is no incorporation of other characteristic, desirable characteristic. So here in these two organism, in the last picture, in these two organism, we should incorporate certain desirable characteristic at the time of fertilization that leads to production of new variety of organism. Okay, that is the animal breeding. Genetic selection can be a powerful tool for improving animal welfare by promoting traits that reduce disease susceptibility, improve temperament, and increase adaptability to certain environments. Okay, that is the important aim of breeding. Why we are choosing animal breeding? These are the cases. If one organism is facing certain difficulties in one area or facing certain diseases in one area, then how to reduce by breeding? We should get desirable gene from other area which are resistant to that particular disease, and we should breed those organism with this area organism. In the next generation, the new organism if formed that bears the resistance capacity to the particular disease. That is the good explanation, good example. So for breeding, different determinations are there. That means they determine different categories. So mainly genetic and non-genetic determinations. Genetically determined traits are passed from parent to offspring through inheritance. This trait includes what? Characteristic like coat color, size, certain behavioral tendencies like aggression, teamness. All these are the genetically determined trait that can pass from one generation to another generation through their gene. The heritability of certain traits, how much of the variation in a trait is due to genetics, affect how successful trait can be modified through selective breeding. That means if we select the good traits and allow breeding, that leads to production of fit organism in next generation, which is a part of natural selection, survival of the fittest. And survival of the fittest means if the parents are fit, then they can produce the new fit organism. So high heritability traits are more easily shaped through breeding programs, while trait with low heritability may require more time and effort. High heritability means very less efforts are there because they originally have high heritability. They can pass one generation to next generation in a very easy manner. But low heritability traits, those traits, they require more effort, are called as low heritability traits. So this all coming under the genetic determination. If not discussing about the non-genetic determination, that means many traits influencing welfare are shaped by environmental factors such as nutrition, social environment, management practices. They are under non-genetic determination. What it influence? It influence the expression of genetic trait, often referred to as phenotypic plasticity. That means these environmental factors, social environment, how kind of society they have, what kind of nutrition they have, these factors also sometimes affect the genetic trait. And the genetic trait which pass from one generation to next generation also affected. So this is phenotypic plasticity. Breeding programs must consider both genetic and environmental factors when seeking to improve welfare, as some traits may be more influenced by external conditions than genetic. Okay, so these are genetic determination and non-genetic determinations. Now we'll discuss about undesirable effects for welfare of past breeding strategies. So here first we'll discuss about the productivity. Overemphasis on productivity. Productivity is the production. In the past, animal breeding program prioritize traits related to productivity, such as faster growth, higher milk yield, or larger litters, often at the expense of animal welfare. Okay, that means no one care for animal welfare. Only previously, human being aim was to collect more product from the organism. That's why human being developed broiler chicken, dairy cows, broiler chicken breed for rapid growth. Here the picture is, we all are familiar to this broiler chicken. So this breed for growth often suffer from leg deformities, heart problems, and reduced mobility due to their unnatural body weight. What farmers actually do, they use certain medicines, they use certain antibiotics, they use certain fat related food for their growth. So no one is caring for their welfare. Everybody is in the mode of collecting more product. But when the organismal weight is irregular, that means for getting more meat, we are imposing more and more amount of food. We do not allow those organisms to move here and there. That leads to deposition of more and more amount of flesh. It leads to different problems, heart related issues, leg deformities to the organisms. Okay, so these are different welfare issues. If we are talking about breeding strategies, past breeding strategies, this type of welfare issues were witnessed. If we are talking about dairy cows, the bred for high milk production are more prone to mastitis, reproductive issues, and metabolic disorder. Every process, if it is increasing beyond its normal level, that means that affect other internal parts of the body, other internal processes of the body, other visceral organs. Okay, so these are different deformities were found in dairy cows, which were high milk yielding cows. So these strategies, while successful in increasing productivity, have led to animal experiencing chronic health problem, reduced lifespan, and lower overall welfare. So these are undesirable effects for welfare of past breeding strategies. That means in previous or when human being is only aware about their productivity but not aware about the organismal health. This is the strategies. So what are the efforts, the effect for welfare of past breeding strategies? Mainly physical malformations and behavioral problem. What is the physical malformation? Selective breeding for extreme physical trait such as excessively flat-faced dogs, the bulldogs, pugs, these are the flat-faced dogs, has led to brachycephalic syndrome. That means the causing respiratory issues, difficulty with hemorrhagulations. Okay, thermoregulation difficulties are also there. We all discussed about thermoregulations and maintenance of thermoregulation in previous chapter, in previous classes. Okay, so the bulldogs, they have a flat face structure. It is very uh, funny for us, but it is difficult for them to respire. It is difficult for them to maintain thermoregulation. It increased heart stress that may lead to death of the organism in short span of time. Okay, so these all are the physical malfunctions due to different breeding conditions. What is behavioral problem? Behavioral problem include breeding for appearance or production trait without considering behavior has led to undesirable behavior such as increased aggression or anxiety. If organism is not prepared for different kind of sexual activities and it forcefully involved in sexual activities, that means that leads to different aggression or anxiety. Okay, another example is there. Some breeds of poultry selected for high egg production show increased fearfulness or cannibalism when housed in confinement. Okay, high egg production means they are more energy is utilized from their body, so that how they maintain those energy, how they get their energy, that leads to cannibalism nature. By cannibalism nature, they try to get more energy. Okay, if they are in a confinement area. So using breeding to improve welfare. What is the status? What is the strategies? These are the strategies mentioned here. First is genetic selection for health and robustness. Robustness is good health maintenance trait. So breeding program can be designed to prioritize health and robustness trait that enhance welfare, such as disease resistance, longevity, and resilience to environmental stress. If organism generation after generation, it is affected by any kind of disease, and breeding is the method by which we can incorporate disease resistant gene to those group of organism. That means that is the process of breeding by which we can incorporate, we can improve the welfare of organism. Okay, so for instance, selecting for traits such as strong skeletal structure and resistance to metabolic disorder in livestock can reduce welfare related problem. If less skeletal structures, non-resistance to metabolic disorder is there, then we cannot think about welfare. So strong skeletal structure particularly and resistance to metabolic disorder can reduce welfare related problems. Then temperament and behavior. Selecting animals for calm temperament and reduce aggression can improve handling, reduce fear response, and promote positive human-animal interaction. If organism is become aggressive, then it is difficult for human to handle them properly. Humans start punishing those organisms to minimize its aggression, but that is not good in future sense, in long-term sense. That's why certain genes of other organisms which are calm in nature, which are non-aggressive, that must be incorporated by the process of breeding into other organism, which in future develops positive human-animal interaction. Because for human, it is very easier to handle, to control, to provide any kind of resources to those organisms. And breeding for positive social behavior can also improve welfare in group housed animals by reducing aggression and stress. Okay, then avoiding extreme traits. Avoiding extreme traits means avoiding breeding for extreme physical characteristic. That means if the trait allow to develop the organism for the growth of the organism in an exaggerated manner, flat faces or extreme musculining. Okay, so these characters, particularly when we are talking about the flat faces means that particular face is not allowed in the nasal chambers for inhalation of sufficient amount of air, that leads to different stress factor for the organism. Moderate trait selection promote healthier, more balanced animal that are better suited for their environment. So for breeding purpose to improve animal welfare, these are the process of breeding we should follow for their betterment, for the well-being of organism. This is a pictorial presentation. Okay. And breeding for adaptation to environment is also important because selective breeding can be used to develop animals that are more suited to specific environmental condition, reducing stress caused by mismatched environmental condition. When we are talking about heat tolerant or have greater resistance to disease common in certain climate. Or we can talk that the cows from New Zealand, cows from India. One is the milch breed or high milk yielding breed. One is the climate suited species. If we want to grow that kind of organism in Indian subcontinent, we have to make a breed. We cannot keep New Zealand species in India. We have to make a breed which contain both the characteristic. That means that can live in Indian subcontinent, that can live in Indian climate, as well as that has the property to produce, to give more amount of milk. That is, the breeding for adaptation to environment is very important. And precision breeding technologies, it emphasizes the advances in genetic technologies such as genomic selection and gene editing, allow breeders to more accurately identify and propagate trait linked to welfare improvement. Okay, gene editing nowadays is the very improved status, very advanced status. By gene editing, we can edit, we can change the process, the structural condition of gene. Okay, that is very important. Precision breeding technologies. Gene editing can directly modify genes linked to health or behavior. If the gene is particularly responsible for particular kind of behavior, the editing of that gene, the change in the level of gene, that leads to resistance to the behavior or to the disease, any kind. That also reduce the disorder pattern, inherited disorder pattern. That means if the organism is affected, generation after the group of organisms are affected generation after generation by certain kind of diseases, that means the gene editing can alter, can change the same pattern when editing is over or breeding is responsible for this gene editing. So these are the ethical consideration. If we are talking about breeding, if we are talking about editing, some ethical considerations are there, because while selective breeding has great potential to improve animal welfare, ethical consideration must guide its implementation. Why? Because there must be balance, maintenance of balance between productivity and welfare. Already we have discussed in past what human being did. Human being is just aware about its productivity, its own profit, but not aware about the organismal welfare. That's why there is the ethical committee set certain points which help in improving the productivity as well as improving the welfare status of the organism. Okay, so particularly in balance, breeding program should seek to balance productivity with long-term welfare of animals, avoiding extremes that lead to suffering. Okay, genetic diversity is another important factor. Excessive selective breeding can reduce genetic diversity. So if we select a particular breed and we try to enhance that breed, particularly that same breed, that means diversity at a certain point may disappear from that area. To protect that diversity, we should check the pattern of breeding, whether the breeding pattern is allowing to maintain the diversity or not. Okay. And lastly, the animal sentience and well-being. Already animal sentience we have discussed in previous class. So breeding program must respect the sentience of animal and prioritize their well-being in selection process. Okay, so these are different issues, and in conclusion, I have marked here the genetic selection is a powerful tool for improving animal welfare, offering opportunities to address health, behavior, and environmental adaptability through breeding programs. Past breeding strategies means the breeding strategies focused in previous time. What it focused? It focused on productivity have often led to undesirable welfare outcomes. But modern approaches can emphasize health, the robustness, and positive behavior to enhance welfare. Future breeding program must balance productivity with ethical concerns and prioritize traits that contribute to the overall well-being of animals. Okay, so this all about the breeding. There are different aspects how animal breeding is harmful for organism in some aspect, and how modern form or modern approaches can emphasize their different well-being status. Okay, so this is the part. And at last, we'll discuss about, I'm going to the next slide where we'll discuss about the animal ethics and sentience. So basically, ethics is a branch of philosophy that deals with questions of right and wrong, guiding human action based on moral principles. What it involves, it involves moral reasoning about what we ought to do, considering both individual and societal implications. So ethics means the right thing or wrong thing you should choose. And in the context of animal welfare, why ethics is associated? It examines how human should treat animal, balance our interests with their needs and well-being. That's why ethics is an essential part for this animal welfare. Under this ethics, what we will discuss? First, we will discuss about ethical views or theories. What are different views? So, certain views, certain theories are there, frameworks for making moral judgments. Certain key theories, some key views I have cited here. So, first one is consequentialism. What is the consequentialism? It is the judging action based on their outcomes. Okay. Deontology focus on duties and rules. Virtue ethics focus on emphasizing moral characters and virtues. Utilitarianism emphasize seeking the greatest good for greatest number. And contractualism is the viewing ethics through social contracts. So these are the views of different persons or different groups, and these views are summarized in this pattern. Okay. What is the decision making? Ethical decision making. In animal welfare, it involves evaluating situation based on moral principles and evidences to reach decision that balance human and animal interest. So these are main four steps for ethical decision making. Identifying the ethical issue, considering the stakeholders. Stakeholder means here animals and human. Reviewing the relevant ethical theories, which is appropriate for what categories, and making a decision that promote animal welfare while considering practical constraints. Okay, so these are different views and decision making. First of all, we'll go through this consequentialism. Consequentialism. Okay. What consequentialism asserts? It mainly focuses that the moral rightness of an action depends on its outcome or consequences. That means in animal welfare, if we are talking about uh, consequentialistic focus, that focus on actions that lead to best possible outcome for both human and animal. In example, reducing animal suffering or promoting overall well-being is seen morally right. That means if we are talking about productivity, that productivity should not affect or should not harm to those organisms. Okay, so both balancing their health, well-being, and productivity is the important aspect. Another one is contractarian ethical approach. It in relation to animal, it cannot enter into contracts. Their welfare may not be directly considered in pure contractarian view. Okay, many argue for expanding the ethical contract to include moral duties towards animal due to human empathy and societal interests. Humans should provide. Animal suffering or killing raise to ethical problems. Any form of animal use may be acceptable. Use of animals may even be ethically desirable if it is benefits human. So this is the contractarian ethical approaches. Then these are other aspects, other approaches, which include utilitarian ethical approaches. Utilitarian or utilitarianism, it advocates for the action that maximize happiness and minimize suffering for the greatest number of individuals. Okay, that means when we are talking about farm animals, yes, farm animals were talking about farm animals means we are talking about the productivity. That productivity is very essential because they give us food, nutrition, they give us certain employment, they give us economic assurance. But apart from that, utilitarian ethical approach tells us what? It tells us, it advocates for the actions that maximize happiness to those organisms. Organism is meant for productivity means we cannot harshly treat them. We should emphasize on their happiness. We should try to minimize as much as we can from suffering for the greatest number of individuals. That means we ensure happiness to the greatest number of individuals. We ensure less stress to the greatest number of individuals. So particularly in animal welfare, a utilitarian approach promotes what? It promotes action that reduce animal suffering and increase their overall well-being, which we call it as so-called animal welfare. So, in example, it is cited here that minimizing pain in livestock farming would be an ethical goal under utilitarianism. Minimal punishment, productivity collection is not by harming those organisms, by harshing those organisms. So, minimal pain must be given to those organisms. Without pain, if we collect the product, then it is good. But you should reduce the pain to maximum number of individual. That is the main approach of utilitarian ethical approach. Then respect for nature views, we know that natural occurring organism means the organism produced by nature. So what kind of views from this natural point of view? These views emphasize the intrinsic value of nature and its components, advocating for the protection of species, ecosystem, and natural processes. Before some time, I have given one example that if we particularly focus on production of one group of organism, that means that leads to diversity. Diversity loss means there is loss of ecosystem components. There is loss of natural processes. Okay, so this must be properly observed, properly verified. In animal ethics, what is the role of these natural views? Respect for nature may prioritize the protection of entire species or habitat, potentially even over individual animal welfare, with the aim of preserving biodiversity and natural balance. So this is the respect for nature views. Then come to ethical dilemmas for animal welfare. What kind of ethical dilemmas are there? It arises when conflicting moral principles or interests make it difficult to choose the best course of action. That means common dilemmas in animal welfare include what? It includes balancing human benefits such as food production, medical research with animal suffering, prioritizing individual welfare versus species conservation, conflict of interest between different animal, predator-prey relationship in conservation. So these are the different dilemmas. Dilemmas explains what? Which factor should be prioritized more? That is the dilemmas. Prey-predator relationship is there, but without prey-predator relationship, productivity cannot be utilized. But there is another factor of conservation. So that create one conflict of interest. Deontological approaches explains what? It is concerned with duties and rules rather than consequences. It posits that certain actions are morally obligatory regardless of their outcomes. That means whatever outcomes are there, you should follow, you should stick to that actions. What is the use of it in animal welfare? Deontological approaches suggest that humans have a moral duty to treat animal with respect and dignity. For example, by avoiding cruelty or neglect, even if such treatment does not lead to a clear positive outcome. If we are talking about livestock, the livestock which are at its old age, we should provide them food. They may not beneficial for us, but this is our moral duty. This is the moral duty of human being, that they do not neglect those species, those organisms which are previously were in use but not now. So for that purpose, deontological approaches set certain duties and rules rather than consequences. Now come to next, that is virtue ethics. Virtue ethics focus on moral character of individuals rather than on specific rules or outcomes. Okay, so what are those moral characters in animal welfare? This approach encourages human to cultivate virtues like compassion, kindness, and care towards animal. This is fit for all. Kindness, care, and compassion must be from human side to the animal. Why? Why this kind of behavior are necessary? Because it promotes a moral attitude of respect for life and empathy towards animal suffering. So every organism has its own right to live. If we keep the organism for our betterment, we should treat them like that manner. Okay, so this is the moral character of individual rather than on specific rules or outcomes. Practical ethical decision making shows what? It shows practical ethical decision making in animal involves applying ethical theories or real world scenarios. What are the steps coming under this? Identifying the moral issues. For instance, deciding whether certain forms of animal use are justified, weighing the interest, that means consider the well-being of animal and human involved, the stakeholders. These are the stakeholders. Applying ethical frameworks, that means utilize utilitarian, deontological, other theories to analyze the situation and taking actions. We choose the course of action that best align with ethical reasoning and promote welfare. So these are different aspects we have covered. I think some ideas regarding this are incorporate. I'm trying to incorporating many things, but at least in this short span of time, some ideas were incorporated into the mind of the readers, of the students. So, am I audible? Is it visible to all? Is the screen visible to all?
Yes, sir.
I think we have covered the portions, whatever portions in this part, particularly the portions I am showing here. Just a minute. Okay, this is the portion. We have completed introduction to animal behavior, concept and evolution. All the aspect I think we have completed. We have completed systematics approach to understand important animal and human behavior. Under that, we have discussed about altruism. We have discussed about different kind of behavior, social behavior, cooperation, conflicts, everything, and different factors, human behavior. We have discussed about animal welfare, different pattern of welfare, environmental coping, animal sentience, meeting animal needs, everything. And lastly, we have covered this part, the fourth unit part, that is animal welfare 2, improvement in animal welfare through social condition and ethics animal ethics, and sentience. Okay, I think this covered. Any confusion from your side? If any confusion, you can ask me. Notes I'll send within 1 to 2 days. Okay, to one of them, to one of you. I'll send the note. Then you'll send it to the groups you have. Have you enjoyed the class?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Okay, I think this is the last class for this particular paper, your animal ethics and animal behavior paper. If any confusion from your side, we have certain times. We have at least 10 minutes. You can ask me questions. I'm trying to answer the questions asked by you. Yes, this is the time for discussion. Already we have discussed many things. And now this is the time for questionnaire. You can ask some questions of your interest.
Sir, kindly send all PPT.
Time not audible to me.
Sir, kindly send all classes PPT.
PDF.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Classes
definitely I'll
PPT.
send. Definitely I'll send the class PDF to you for your study. But along with that, you have to incorporate certain other things for your writing, long type writing and other question answer pattern writing. Okay. Okay. If you don't have any question, I have one question for you. In this class, I have discussed about animal robustness. So, how many of you can actually answer what is animal robustness? What robustness actually explains? It actually explains in one slide we have mentioned. I'm just explaining this slide again. Just 1 minute. Yes, here I have mentioned the robustness using breeding to improve welfare. Breeding program can be redesigned to prioritize health and robustness trait. This robustness explains particularly any answer from your side. Otherwise, I am giving my questions answer. The ability of an animal. Animal robustness means ability
Sir,
of
the
an
ability
animal.
to maintain homeostasis.
Ability to maintain
Homeostasis.
homeostasis.
It is the ability to maintain homeostasis.
So which kind of homeostasis they are maintaining? Yes, your answer is partially correct. Not partially correct is correct, but I want to know what is that ability to maintain homeostasis?
जैसे the
Why we are
example
discussing it
the
in yes? Ability to maintain homeostasis means ability
ability
of
of a cow in the environment. She lives in as well as in a wide range of a climate. Uh, sir, I don't know proper example.
survival and performance in
Yes, sir.
dynamic environment. That is the robustness. If animal is able to maintain itself, is able to maintain its survival point of view as well as its performance in changing environment. That means organism adapt the environmental change, can survive in the environment. That is the factor of robustness. Okay. If any kind of change occurs in the environment, the gene which is not previously present in organism but now incorporated into the organism, that is responsible for the better health and robustness. That is the point of improving welfare by the process of breeding. We can incorporate the gene. The gene is actually responsible for its maintenance in changing environmental condition. The gene actually responsible for its survival in changing environmental condition. So that point actually explains the robustness. Okay, and that trait is known as the robustness trait of the organism. That actually enhance welfare such as disease resistance, longevity, and resilience to environmental stress. Now, another question is there. What is resilience? A common term we all hear that ecosystem resilience is there. What is the meaning of this resilience? Resilience means come back to the original position. That means if any kind of disease affect the organism, if any kind of unfavorable conditions affect the environment always try to get its previous condition. That is the resilience mode. Okay, so this kind of gene are incorporated. Okay, so these are certain silly questions from my side. Again, any confusion? If no confusion, then I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to wind up the class for today. A very good night to all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Good night.